Krishna. If you turn a little this way, then it's more like work and rushing. If you turn around just a little, like looking at each other instead of giving a class. Okay. Oh, thank you very much for all devotees for being here. And there's a lot of following going on the internet. Seems like devotees are enthusiastic to hear, especially to hear you.
We're reading Caitanya Caritamrita, and it's a divine experience entering into Lord Chaitanya's presentation of the emotional intensity of Krishna's dearmost consort.
Through your lips, from the lips.
I'm just relishing the sublime association.
Chapter 2, verse.
I think it's 20, are we up to 23?
Yes. We're right at 23.
Yes. Okay, I'll start.
Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda,
Jai Nityananda,
Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura, Bhakta Vrinda,
Jai Dvaita Chandra, Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
I like this verses. In the scriptures it is said that one person can never know the unhappiness in the mind of another. Therefore, what can I say, my dear friend Lalita and others? Nor can they understand the unhappiness within me. They simply try to console me repeatedly, saying, dear friend, be patient.
Well, right off from the start, I wanted to ask you, did Lalita doesn't understand, or it's just a way of expressing that that's how vast the unhappiness is and incomprehensible? That even Lalita, how can I explain it to them?
To really fully grasp Srimati Radharani's happiness and sorrow, can someone fully understand? Can someone really grasp it? Even Lalita. I mean, it's said that the manjaris are in one sense more closer tuned to Sri Radha in some ways. They all experience Mahabhav, but the intensity, well, we read yesterday that they're unique. The experience of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Srimati Radharani are actually really unique to them.
So you're saying that usually Lalita and Vishaka understand, or this is just usually, but this is the special depth of lamentation is off the charts, so to speak.
Yeah, the ultimate expressions that they may not be privy to.
Mm.
What does it mean that I understand what someone else experiences? It's really only possible if I experience it myself, isn't it? And if the gopis are trying to console Srimati Radharani, then at the same time they can't be feeling it because they're consoling her. Mm-hmm. They're coming from a different position, either voluntarily that they don't go there, or that, as it says, they can't experience that. What do you think?
She says, they just try to console me, that's all they can do.
Mm.
There's something beyond them.
If you're consoling someone, then you're not in the same distress as they are.
Mm. But then sometimes, especially Lalita will chastise Krishna and chastise Radharani, right?
Yeah.
Which side are they mostly on? Whose side?
They can go either way.
That's what I thought.
Mine is just stick on Radharani's side.
Well, Lalita, sometimes she's chastising
Radharani,
yeah.
sometimes Krishna. But even they sort of tend to be on Radha's side.
Mm-hmm.
It's Bhavolas. Further, I say, my dear friends, you're asking me to be patient, saying that Krishna is an ocean of mercy, and that sometime in the future he will accept me. However, I must say that this will not console me. A living entity's life is very flickering. It's like water on the leaf of a lotus. Who will live long enough to expect Krishna's mercy?
So they're failing even at consoling. They don't understand, number one, and now she's saying, what they're telling me won't console me.
I mean, I have, God brothers were talking in a very similar way, that, they're impatient and feeling unhappiness due to not being the object of Krishna's mercy. And when you console them and say that, well, what Shastra says, that sooner or later, and they said, yeah, but, I'm only living for so long, and who knows if later is going to be just too late. And consoling doesn't work. I'm not satisfied with that. Thank the Lord, it's warm in here.
Who will live long enough to expect Krishna's mercy?
Who will live long enough? But sooner or later it's going to come. But it may just come just like it as you're leaving this body. And if no one gets to know about it, then they won't be encouraged. If it happens during this lifetime, or others can witness it, and then they can think, oh yes, Krishna is actually merciful, and he does give his mercy to his devotees.
Is it sometimes said that Krishna will hide his doing that to protect the confidentiality of bhakti?
Yeah. Confidentiality of bhakti, to just increase a devotee's desire, because the more you are separated from me, the more you hanker after me. It is actually the type of separation that Srila Prabhupada talks about.
It said somewhere that it seems like an advanced devotee is going through suffering so that the inner world of bhakti is protected from outsiders. They just think, just see, this person is practicing spiritual life and suffering. Anyone can see that.
Yeah. And even Krishna's departure, leaving a material body behind, always giving food for argument for non-believers. That you really have to have faith in order to accept those things.
And even what's his name, Madhavendra Puri's disciple got bewildered.
Why are we lamenting?
Yeah, what is lamentation? You're supposed to be fixed in Brahman. Hankering and lamenting about obtaining Mathura. I remember once, I'm sure you remember this from Prabhupada's time, that a devotee was looking at a picture of him and saying, Prabhupada, you look so sad in this photo. In other words, what are you thinking? And Prabhupada said, you don't know. I was deep in ecstasy.
Yes, that's right. That was his visa photo or something like that, his application. Oh no, that little pamphlet that Prabhupada brought with him, India's message of goodwill. On that was seen. Yeah, oh, he looks so sad. No, that was deep ecstasy. Mycket. A human being does not live more than 100 years. You should also consider that the youthfulness of a woman, which is the only attraction for Krishna, remains for only a few days. This also misleading statements. In other words, it sort of misleads the nature of Krishna's love. Just, well, the only thing Krishna is interested in is a woman's attractiveness, which is, not the case. Krishna is interested in the love, not whether she's attractive or not. If you say that Krishna is an ocean of transcendental qualities and therefore must be merciful someday, I can only say that he is like fire, which attracts flies by its dazzling brightness and kills them. Such are the qualities of Krishna. By showing us his transcendental qualities, he attracts our minds, and then later by separating from us, he drowns us in an ocean of unhappiness. There's I don't know whether it's a cultural thing but you notice that there's this great plurality of gopis and Krishna's just singular identity. So where did this come into play that one man has unlimited number of lovers. And how come they accept it amongst each other?
Why is it they accept just being one amongst thousands?
Yeah.
Well, Krishna must really be attractive. Otherwise they wouldn't accept anything to be with him.
I guess it's sort of now when you got, I don't know, music stars or movie stars, and you got all these thousands of girls going shrieking, and what do they expect, that he's going to relate to all of them? Krishna's the one who can, but
something about the psychology, both in the mundane realm and in the topmost part of the spiritual world. But I'm still thinking about the point you raised, that Krishna's only interested in the youthfulness of a woman. And so you're pointing out that, well, that's not exactly true. That's not the only attraction for him. The main attraction is their love. But still, they're saying like that. So why don't they say, oh, Krishna actually just wants our love? Instead, they say Krishna just wants our youthfulness, and then
because they're I can't express it. Yeah, it's the psychology that one is that they're dealing with each other in Nara Lila as like ordinary human beings, and the other, it's the nature of sort of love that you may put somebody down, that it's actually not true, but because they're disappointed, because he's stood them up, they come out like that.
Perhaps the perverted material equivalent of that is when often husbands, I've heard, complain that the wife forgets all the good things the man has done and just slashes them with words when he makes one mistake, one discrepancy.
Yeah, it's the nature of attachment, nature of love, exchange between man and woman.
So we're seeing the perfection of that, the origin of that.
You want to start reading from me in this way?
In this way, Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu lamented in a great ocean of sadness, and thus he opened the doors of his unhappiness. Forced by the waves of ecstasy, his mind wandered over transcendental mellows, and he recited another verse as follows.
Don't forget, he's reading Shastra, reciting verses, getting all this bliss by quoting other acharyas. I'm just referring to the reading of the books, discussion. That Lord Chaitanya is getting so much bliss and ecstasy, highest ecstasy, just from repeating things in a book.
Shri Krishna Rupari Nashevanam Vina Vyartani Mehan Yakilendriyan Yalam Pashana Shukskendana Bharakanyaho Bibarmi vatani katam hata trapaha. My dear friends, unless I serve the transcendental form, qualities, and pastimes of Sri Krishna, all my days and all my senses will become entirely useless. Now I am uselessly bearing the burden of my senses, which are like stone blocks and dried wood. I do not know how long I will be able to continue without shame.
Why? Shame. Trapa. Hata trapa. Without shame. I do not know how long I will be able to continue without shame. What is without shame? What is there to be ashamed of here? Or
The only thing I can think of is all my days and all my senses are useless, and my having senses is all useless. I'm just dragging around senses that feel like stone blocks and dried wood. I'm ashamed of how useless I am. Unless I serve the transcendental form, qualities, and pastimes of Sri Krishna.
Yeah, we're struggling to engage our senses in Krishna, and here she has no separate identity if her senses aren't engaged in Krishna's service. Never thinks, well, maybe I should engage them in some material activity.
The ahankara of material life thinks we're so competent and will be fulfilled doing something other than devotional service. And that when it comes to doing devotional service, we have to strain and push ourselves and whip ourselves because it's not natural. But it's so natural for the senses to connect with material sense objects for our own gratification. But here we're seeing that the senses are simply meant for giving pleasure to Krishna. My dear friends, unless I serve the transcendental form, qualities, and pastimes of Sri Krishna, everything is useless. Even my senses have no function.
The senses are meant for serving Krishna. If you're not serving Krishna, then they're useless. There's no alternative.
Of what use are the eyes of one who does not see the face of Krishna, which resembles the moon and is the birthplace of all beauty and the reservoir of the nectarian songs of his flute? Oh, let a thunderbolt strike his head. Why does he keep such eyes?
A thunderbolt strike his head? As far as you'd think they will let a thunderbolt strike my head.
Why keep eyes? Better let a thunderbolt strike the head if you're not seeing the face of Krishna.
Because what does it go? Why does he keep such eyes? Is that what you got?
Of what use are the eyes of one who does not see the face of Krishna? That's the way I take it.
No, at the end.
Why does he keep such eyes? Why does a person have eyes if they're not seeing?
Oh, why does he?
Yes.
Oh, it's not. It doesn't refer to Krishna.
Yeah. I also had to think about that for a long time.
Okay. Yeah.
Purport. The moon-like face of Krishna is the reservoir of nectarian songs and the abode of his flute. It is also the root of all bodily beauty. The gopis think that if their eyes are not engaged in seeing the beautiful face of Krishna, it would be better for them to be struck by a thunderbolt. For the gopis, to see anything but Krishna is uninteresting and indeed detestable. The gopis are never pleased to see anything but Krishna. The only solace for their eyes is the beautiful moon-like face of Krishna, the worshipful object of all senses. When they cannot see the beautiful face of Krishna, they actually see everything as vacant, and they desire to be struck by a thunderbolt. They do not find any reason to maintain their eyes when they are bereft of the beauty of Krishna. My dear friends, Saki Hai, please hear me. I have lost all providential strength. Without Krishna, my body, consciousness, and mind, as well as all my senses, are useless.
What's providential strength?
Vidhi Bala, the strength of providence. That's a good question. Whatever, I could speculate that it's whatever strength that providence normally endows one with.
It's a nice phrase.
Vidhi Bala. Topics about Krishna are like waves of nectar. If such nectar does not enter one's ear, the ear is no better than the hole of a damaged conch shell. Such an ear is created for no purpose.
Here we go, Bhagavatam.
Should we read all the Bhagavatam verses?
Up to you, or is it just a translation? What do you like?
In this connection, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur quotes the following verses from Srimad Bhagavatam. Both by rising and setting, the sun decreases the duration of life of everyone, except one who utilizes the time by discussing topics of the all-good personality of Godhead. Do the trees not live? Do the bellows of the blacksmith not breathe? All around us, do the beasts not eat and discharge semen? Men who are like dogs, hogs, camels, and asses, praise those men who never listen to the transcendental pastimes of Lord Sri Krishna, the deliverer from evils. One who has not listened to the messages about the prowess and marvelous acts of the personality of Godhead, and has not sung or chanted loudly the worthy songs about the Lord, should be considered to possess ears like the holes of snakes and a tongue like that of a frog. The upper portion of the body, though crowned with a silk turban, is only a heavy burden, if not bowed down before the personality of Godhead, who can award mukti, freedom. And the hands, though decorated with glittering bangles, are like those of a dead man, if not engaged in the service of the personality of Godhead, Hari. The eyes, which do not look at the symbolic representations of the personality of Godhead, Vishnu, his forms, names, qualities, so forth, are like those printed on the plumes of a peacock. And the legs, which do not move to the holy places, where the Lord is remembered, are considered to be like tree trunks. The person who has not at any time received upon his head the dust from the feet of a pure devotee of the Lord is certainly a dead body. And the person who has never experienced the flavor of the tulasi leaves from the lotus feet of the Lord is also a dead body, although breathing. Certainly, that heart is steel-framed, which, in spite of one's chanting the holy name of the Lord with concentration, does not change and feel ecstasy, at which time tears fill the eyes and the hairs stand on end.
Tadashma saram hridayam patedam yadgrihama harinam dhyaya navikriyatiyata yada vikaro netri janam gatraru heishu harsha. Certainly that heart is steel framed, which in spite of one's chanting the whole name of the Lord with concentration, does not change when ecstasy takes place. Tears fill the eyes and the hairs stand on end.
Sometimes devotees, they ask the question, why is my heart, after all these years of chanting, my heart is still so steel-framed?
What do you say?
Offenses make it so that the Hare Krishna mantra takes some time to soften the heart. But also, the foremost chanter, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, feels that he's not chanting Hare Krishna properly or attentively or with attraction. So I try to explain, you can tell me what you think, but I try to explain that when will we ever think we're chanting well enough? When Lord Chaitanya says, Dodaiva Samahajuni Nanuraga, I'm so unfortunate, I have no attraction for the holy name, but he's the foremost chanter.
And when he's chanting and tears are in his eyes, he says, Na prema gandhosmi, it's not really love that I have, I'm just putting on a show, I'm imitating. These are like crocodile tears.
If I actually loved Krishna, I would have died long ago from separation. But the fact that I'm alive shows you I'm cheating. I don't really have love for Krishna. I'm still maintaining this body, even though there's no love.
Generally offenses is one thing, certainly, that nama parad, and then, as we mentioned before, sometimes bhakti or the holy name holds back some of its fruits to increase hankering and desire and to force devotees to purify themselves further and look for the faults. Who knows if a sort of intermediate devotee starts to really feel some certain level of, anyway, it's not going to be prema, but it's going to feel some level of ecstasy. He may think, I'm there, I got some ruchi, I got some asakti, and if he doesn't have suitable guidance, he may just think I'm really there because he's still subject to making mistakes and becoming influenced by the material energy. But I think a lot of it has to do with just that of the burden of offenses, which is something that actually carries on. It's sort of what defines Bhava Bhakti. That love is sprouting now, but you're not getting the full benefit of love because the aroma and the effects of offenses still carry on into that realm. So they're very tenuous. Yeah.
What are very tenuous?
The results of offenses committed during our tenure as devotees, as we do sadhana bhakti. Even we may have committed those offenses a long while ago, but still their effect is very pervasive. It's much more much more so than just karmic reactions. Karmic reactions are relatively quickly eradicated.
What if we chant the Panchatattva mantra before chanting Hare Krishna?
That helps.
Does it give us a chance?
It helps.
Otherwise it sounds kind of bleak, you know?
Yeah.
The nectar from the lips of Lord Krishna and his transcendental qualities and characteristics surpass the taste of the essence of all nectar, and there is no fault in tasting such nectar. If one does not taste it, he should die immediately after birth, and his tongue is to be considered no better than the tongue of a frog.
Well, the flute is the best of. Because almost unrestrictedly the flute is enjoying the nectar of Krishna's lips, provided that it's a sentient being.
Provided I missed the last word.
Provided that the flute is actually a conscious being. But usually we hear that even if it's not, it becomes conscious by Krishna's touch.
Mm-hmm.
And then the gopis, somewhat less. Sometimes the mother Jasoda also gets feel Krishna's lips, and then cowherd boys on occasion. Even in Vraja Dham, Gop Kumara's meditations is Krishna's getting a kiss from Krishna. But those are not lip-to-lip kisses. Generally, friendship or even parenthood.
One's nostrils are no better than the bellows of a blacksmith if one has not smelled the fragrance of Krishna's body, which is like the aroma of musk combined with that of a bluish lotus flower. Indeed, such combinations are actually defeated by the aroma of Krishna's body. Have you ever tried to approximate that fragrance by combining musk and blue? I thought you would do something like that.
We've done it, yeah.
And is it really, I mean, is it...
Musk, the thing is real musk.
Where does real musk come from?
It comes from the navel of a deer, musk deer.
So you got some real musk and...
Well, I don't know. I don't think so, but they have pretty good synthetic byproducts. Yeah, we've done it. We've mixed it, smeared it over Sham's body.
With a bluish lotus flower?
Oh no, no. This chatusana is different. I forget now what the mixture is. You remember? It's there's a percentage of different things, and the Prabhupada gives it.
Mm-hmm. And the smell is?
Wonderful. But Krishna is better. And Krishna puts on perfumes. He likes to try out different perfumes. Asks the cowherd boys, what do you think? Is it just going to work on Radharani?
The palms of Krishna's hands and the soles of his feet are so cool and pleasant that they can be compared only to the light of millions of moons. One who has touched such hands and feet has indeed tasted the effects of touchstone. If one has not touched them, his life is spoiled and his body is like iron. Lamenting in this way, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu opened the doors of grief within his heart. Morose, humble, and disappointed, he recited a verse again and again with a despondent heart. Purport. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the word dainya, humility, is explained as follows. When unhappiness, fearfulness, and the sense of having offended combine, one feels condemned. This sense of condemnation is described as dinata, humility. When one is subjected to such humility, he feels physically inactive, he apologizes, and his consciousness is disturbed. His mind is also restless, and many other symptoms are visible. In Brihad Bhagavatamrita, there's a definition given by Sanatana Goswami of dainya also. And he says it's when someone feels useless and totally incompetent in their service to Krishna, but everyone else can see that devotee and thinks the devotee is so expert and doing so wonderfully, but the devotee himself who's being observed thinks, I'm so useless, I'm so incompetent. So Sanatana Goswami says that's dainya. Not that I'm so useless and incompetent, therefore I'm not going to do anything. I'm too fallen. But everyone else is seeing this devotee is doing so wonderfully, but the devotee himself, with dainya, feels I'm incompetent. I just haven't served Krishna properly. The word niveda is also explained in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. One may feel unhappiness and separation, as well as jealousy and lamentation, due to not discharging one's duties. The despondency that results is called nirveda. When one is captured by this despondency, thoughts, tears, loss of bodily luster, humility, and heavy breathing result. Vishada is also explained in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. When one fails to achieve his desired goal of life and repents for all his offenses, there is a state of regret called vishada. The symptoms of avasada are also explained. One hankers to revive his original condition and inquires how to do so. There are also deep thought, heavy breathing, crying and lamentation, as well as changing of the bodily color and drying up of the tongue. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, 33 such destructive symptoms are mentioned. They are expressed in words, in the eyebrows, and in the eyes. These symptoms are called vyabhichari bhava, destructive ecstasy. If they continue, they are sometimes called sanchari, or continued ecstasy.
Text 36. Yadayato daivan madhuripura solochana patam tadasmakam cheto madanahata ritam abhut punaryasmine shakshanam apidishoreti padavim vidhasyamas tasmin akilagatika ratnaka chita. If by chance the transcendental form of Krishna comes before my path of vision, my heart, injured from being beaten, will be stolen away by Cupid, happiness personified. Because I could not see the beautiful form of Krishna to my heart's content, when I again see his form, I shall decorate the phases of time with many jewels. Purport, this is a verse spoken by Srimati Radharani in the Jagannath Vallabhanataka of Ramananda Roy. And when devotees read these things, and I know often when I ask devotees, do you read the Sanskrit? They skip over the Sanskrit and just sort of read their language, whatever it may be. And even though it's such an elevated mood, Srimati Radharani's mood, but it's always in one sense translatable to our level of devotional service, and it nurtures our own mood of devotion, actually feeding that mood of devotion, and that's why this regular hearing is such an important thing.
So you're saying the devotees shouldn't think this is so far beyond us that therefore there's no point in...
No, the book is, I mean, it's for all levels of devotees, it's for Uttamadhikaris as well. But certainly this is Lord Chaitanya's mission to elevate the fallen. So this is also for the fallen, for the conditioned souls.
One devotee today asked me a question which often comes up, like, what about our emotions? As if bhakti doesn't deal with the emotions. Like, I've adopted a religious belief, but what about my emotions? And I often reply, why don't you read Nectar Devotion, which shows how bhakti is the perfection of emotions, not the denial of emotions.
Yeah. But you have to really train your emotions, keep your emotions in check when you're conditioned, and as you become purified, then they start to reflect more and more Krishna consciousness. But in the beginning, our business is to do our duty and to have good sadhana. Emotions or no emotions.
That's a tough pill to swallow for many. What about me? What am I getting out of this? When am I going to feel something? I'm doing this for me.
Takes time.
Time. Why should I have to wait? I want to feel good right now, or at least next weekend.
Why didn't Lord Chaitanya arrange like that to just chant Hare Krishna and you're there? It's too cheap. It would be too cheap. You want something valuable, pay the price for it, or at least a token.
I try to point out to devotees when they say like that, I said, I'm sure there's an example in your life where you wanted something and really struggled through all kinds of ordeals to get it. And generally everyone's had that experience. You could be a young person and you wanted to travel overseas. You wanted to fly out of Europe and visit Australia or New Zealand. So you take some lousy job working in a restaurant or something like that, but you have your goal fixed in mind. I'll save up enough money and then I'll be able to go. Or I want to buy a house. I want to buy a car. I'll slave to get that. So why can't we do that for Krishna? So I tell myself that if I'm not struggling for Krishna as much as I did for some material goal, I'm cheating. At least it should be equal. Better, more, but at least equal.
What about, when devotees really come face to face with how much they have to struggle, that they sort of lose their enthusiasm. Oh, this is just too much for me. At first it sounds so easy, you just chant Hare Krishna, be happy, and then all of a sudden, you're supposed to be struggling to no end to achieve some far-off distant goal. And devotees become discouraged, and then next lifetime we'll continue.
I always remember Prahlad Maharaj pointing out that it's actually natural for you to revive your dormant love for Krishna, because Krishna is everyone's source, everyone's father. But then he points out the converse. He says, going to hell requires hard work. When you talked about your confirmation yesterday, did they ever make you memorize the verse from the Bible? The wages of sin are death, but the gift of God is eternal life.
I can't remember. I can see you can.
It's an interesting metaphor. The wages of sin are death. You work hard, and what do you get paid with?
You died.
But the gift of God is eternal life. So you're speaking about how devotees sometimes become discouraged because their spiritual advancement doesn't come quick enough. So what should we advise them to do?
What can you advise them? Just stick with it.
Just stick with it. I want to enjoy now.
But usually devotees don't enjoy now because they don't read enough. Because when you read Caitanya Caritamrita, when you read Bhagavatam, you really become surcharged. You get your intelligence becomes illuminated. You really feel substantial spiritual strength, like I'm getting somewhere. But it's a fact, if devotees don't pick up books, they don't read on a regular basis, and Srila Prabhupada's books, then what Prabhupada says, they'll fall down.
But I don't have time, I'm working so hard.
Prabhupada would say, don't sleep, don't eat.
Come home from work, they had the kids, and family affairs, and social media.
Should have thought about this before.
But have mercy. We married. We wanted to put Krishna in the center, but things happen. It's just work life, family life. You got to fix the house or fix the car or this or that or mother-in-law and.
But some devotees do it very successfully. Some devotees are successful grihastas. But this idea of just taking on too much, wanting to compete, having what I want rather than just what I need, living with a bit instead of living with just the necessities.
But those householders who do well spiritually, they're special. They're mystic yogis. I've heard that devotees speaking about our godbrother Burijan Prabhu or other exalted householders like that. Oh, but they're mystic yogis. Don't bring their example up.
They've become mystic yogis. They're just serious devotees. Manusham Sahasrishi. And we should not become a society of Kanishta Adhikaris. Because we're a preaching organization, which means that we should be a society of Madhyama Adhikaris. At least.
Some will say, though, as the Krishna conscious society spreads, it's natural that things become thin.
Ventilator pa indítjátok.
As it spreads, it's natural that people won't, most persons won't have that intense commitment.
Anyway, at this stage of my Krishna consciousness, I just do whatever you want. It's your decision. It's too childish a discussion for adults to be engaged in. You came to Krishna consciousness. Make the arrangements, see it through, do the austerity, whatever it takes. Prabhupada's given such a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. You don't want to come back to this material world. And if it's too much, anyway, Hare Krishna, need association of other devotees. Continue. Whenever I had the chance to see Lord Krishna's face and his flute, even in a dream, two enemies would appear before me. They were pleasure and Cupid. And since they took away my mind, I was not able to see the face of Krishna to the full satisfaction of my eyes. Whenever I see the chance to see Lord Krishna's face and his flute, two enemies appear before me, pleasure and Cupid. Means pastimes. And since they took away my mind, I was not able to see the face of Krishna to the full satisfaction of my eyes. I was so absorbed in the result of seeing Krishna, which was engaging in pastimes and relishing the pleasure, that I got distracted from seeing his face.
So therefore those two are enemies, pleasure and Cupid.
Yes, so you're saying, yeah, the pleasure you're getting is an enemy from seeing Krishna. You'll get ecstasy, your eyes will cloud over and get full of tears, and you won't be able to see Krishna's face again.
So what everyone thinks is the highest experience, pleasure and Cupid, here they're considered enemies.
Yeah, if I get an ecstasy and where's the ecstasy? Where's the ecstasy? But if the symptoms of ecstasy come, then the cause of the ecstasy will become covered. Like Daruka is fanning Krishna, and the ecstasy comes and I can't see Krishna.
So you all have joined a movement in which pleasure and Cupid are considered enemies.
If by chance such a moment comes when I can once again see Krishna, then I shall worship those seconds, moments, and hours with flower garlands and pulp of sandalwood and decorate them with all kinds of jewels and ornaments. And that's really so beautiful. In an instant, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu regained external consciousness and saw two persons before him. Questioning them, he asked, "Am I conscious? What dreams have I been seeing? What craziness have I spoken? Have you heard some expressions of humility?" Purport. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu thus spoke in ecstasy, he saw two persons before him. One was his secretary, Swarup Damodar, and the other was Ramananda Roy. Coming to his external consciousness, he saw them both present, and although he was still talking in the ecstasy of Srimati Radharani, he immediately began to question whether he was the same Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, "My dear friend, you are all my life and soul. Therefore I tell you that I possess no wealth of love for Krishna. Consequently, my life is poverty-stricken. My limbs and senses are useless." Again he addressed both Swarup Damodar and Ramananda Roy, speaking despondently, "Alas, my friends, you can know the certainty within my heart, and after knowing my heart you should judge whether I'm correct or not. You can speak of this properly." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then began to chant another verse. Kai avarahi am pe mamam nahi hoi manushyiroe jai hoi kasa virahe hontami ko jiyai. This is Prakrit. Love of Godhead devoid of cheating propensities is not possible within this material world. If there is such love, there cannot be separation, for if there is separation, how can one live? This is a verse in common language called Prakrita, and the exact Sanskrit transformation is Kaita varahitam prema nahi bhavati manushye loke yadi bhavati kasya viraho virahe satyapiko jivati. We continue with this. It's Hanyoraman. No, we've got half an hour, so.
He's now telling Sri Damodar and Rai Ramananda, you can know the certainty within my heart, and after knowing my heart, you can make a judgment about whether I'm correct or not. But we were going back to the beginning of our discussion tonight where he said, no one can understand. Now he's saying, you can know the certainty within my heart, and after knowing that, you can make a judgment. You can speak of this properly. So we're within the realm of the comprehensible by Sri Damodar and Ramananda.
Or, as much as they can comprehend. I mean, we're commenting on this, we're talking about this, how much do we say? Well, according to our realization, according to our purity, we can understand. And of course their love for Krishna is very, very deep. So their understanding will be extraordinary. Love of Godhead devoid of cheating propensities is not possible within this material world. That's sort of like I remember, I think it's in Raghavatma Chandrika, where Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is speaking about prema and why prema is not attainable in this world. One reason being that the constitution of the material body doesn't suit the different bhavas, ecstatic symptoms that result. So he's saying love of Godhead is not possible within the material world. Of course, when one takes birth in the material world where Krishna enjoys pastime, she actually gets to develop love, but there he has a spiritual or semi-spiritual body.
Semi-spiritual body? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, according to their level of purity, it may be part material, part spiritual still. Again, Vishwanath explains all that in detail in those few verses that talk about the gopis who couldn't get out.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
They burned off their karmic reactions.
Mm. Yeah. And then I was, because of those sadhana siddhas who came into Krishna's Lila, some of them had attained bhava, but some of them had only attained asakti in their previous life. And so they're coming with that, which is that they have real strong attachment, and then they're getting some training, but that training was not necessarily complete by that time. And
by which time, I'm sorry?
By that time of the residence.
So therefore they couldn't run out immediately.
But that tapa, that fire of separation, helped burned it up, and then finally they got to see Krishna and embrace him within their heart. So that was the finale. Pure love for, this will be the last one I read. Pure love for Krishna, just like gold from the Jambu River, does not exist in human society. If it existed, there could not be separation. If separation were there, one could not live. So it's sort of one of the reasons is because with prema, your separation becomes so strong, body, you couldn't live. Spiritual bodies live, and of course this is a form of expression, but material bodies can't handle that separation.
It's a very interesting thought that everyone wants love and to be loved, but their material bodies can't handle real love.
Next lifetime. Well, by comparison to what we experience as love in this world, even the higher stages of sadhana bhakti are so much more relishable. Raso vajam, raso pyasya. Devotees can get so much more taste. It becomes so much more relishable, because ultimately what's love? Love is pleasure. And it doesn't last. Material love.
Shh, don't say
Ask the wives here. You're up next.
Thus speaking, the son of Srimati Shachimata recited another wonderful verse, and Ramananda Rai and Srup Damodar heard this verse with rapt attention. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu said, I feel shameful to disclose the activities of my heart. Nonetheless, I shall be done with all formalities and speak from the heart. Please hear.
That's the verse.
Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu continued.
They didn't quote the verse.
Na prema gandosti dharapa me harao khandami sobhagya baram prakashitum vamshi valasya nanalokanam vina bibarmi yat prana patanga kanvrita. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu continued, My dear friends, I have not the slightest tinge of love of Godhead within my heart. When you see me crying in separation, I am just falsely exhibiting a demonstration of my great fortune. Indeed, not seeing the beautiful face of Krishna playing his flute, I continue to live my life like an insect without purpose. Actually, my love for Krishna is far, far away. Whatever I do is actually an exhibition of pseudo-love of Godhead. When you see me cry, I am simply falsely demonstrating my great fortune. Please try to understand this beyond a doubt.
Very different from what I have. Actually, my love for Krishna is far, far away. Whatever I do is actually false. When you see me cry, I'm simply exhibiting my great fortune. Please try to understand this beyond a doubt.
Even though I do not see the moon-like face of Krishna as he plays on his flute, and although there is no possibility of my meeting him, still I take care of my own body. That is the way of lust. In this way, I maintain my fly-like life. Purport. In this connection, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that the lovable Supreme Lord is the supreme shelter. The Lord is the supreme shelter. The Lord is the supreme subject, and the devotees are the object. Their coming together of a subject and an object is called alambana. The object hears, and the subject plays the flute. That the object cannot see the moon-like face of Krishna and has no eagerness to see him is the sign of being without alambana. Externally imagining such a thing simply satisfies one's lusty desires, and thus one lives without purpose.
Maharaj, just when you were reading Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, I was remembering when you come to visit from that Ultadanga road, you were like so fired up, said this is the deepest spiritual experience you'd experience. Maybe you can tell the devotees.
Well, of course, that's your vision. I was probably just thinking, oh, I'm tired from the long journey from Calcutta to Mayapur. But, well, all right, but based on what you kindly have presented, it's not only me, but also Vaisheshika Prabhu, when he went there, he said he also felt the same way, that this spot where, on the roof of the building, which is now, as you know, an ISKCON property, you can go to that spot on the roof where Srila Prabhupada paid his obeisances to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and then immediately received the mission to preach Bhakti, Lord Chaitanya's mission in the English language all over the world. And so to your left is Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's quarters, living quarters on the roof. And to the right is the place where Prabhupada sat before him. And so you feel such a surge of transcendental realization, because from that decision that Prabhupada made, he said, after offering arguments why first India had to become independent, and then hearing Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's response that Mahaprabhu's mission is so important it can't wait for anything, including politics. So Prabhupada said at that moment, he accepted defeat and took the mission of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur into his heart. And so you can go and see that spot, and so much of, inconceivably much of the world's true history hinges on that moment. And you can feel that. Interestingly, as you know, Prabhupada didn't take formal initiation for maybe 11 or 12 years later. But he said from that first meeting, he accepted Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's instruction into his heart and was always thinking about it. So how do you see that in terms of real initiation and the formality of the initiation? Is it the ceremony, or is it the taking into the heart as the life and soul the instruction of the spiritual master?
Probably, it's both. If you've taken it into the heart, then you will also respect the ceremony, and which really sort of formalizes that. But yes, certainly that I accept this person and I accept his instructions, and but there's different levels of acceptance. A lot of people, they accept, but then, well, I didn't know it was so difficult to stick with the regulated principles, so, or, I promised to chant 16 rounds, and I had a real acceptance for that, but then later on things changed. And now I'm not doing that. So that type of what Krishna says, that unbreakable determination, Vyavasyatmika buddhir, eke hakurunandana. It doesn't waver, it doesn't change, there's no excuses, and so I think you have to be quite advanced for that, to have that type of determination, and to really be accepting somebody in your heart. Not, I've accepted him now, but then later on, well, I'm not so sure, or I don't really like the things that he says. No, it wasn't you. It was in Niranjan Maharaj, he was quoting Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and he was saying that he says many people don't like to hear the truth, and most devotees don't like to hear the truth.
This is Niranjan Maharaj saying this?
Yeah, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was saying that. In other words, the truth of Krishna consciousness is so, in one sense, extreme, like here, that for us to actually practice it in our lives, it's not so palpable. We don't like to hear it. Raise the topic of sannyas, that all the men should take sannyas, and it's not such a palatable discussion. Not that they should all take sannyas, but some of them. We have brahmacharis, but we need examples of grihasthas who take sannyas. Right, Nishinga? Krishnamala, isn't it?
Examples of? I missed.
Grihasthas who take sannyas.
Oh. How do they do that?
No, we need examples of grihasthas. We've got examples of brahmacharis, but okay, so what? They're more or less living like sannyasis anyway. Mm-hmm. But we need this to show that yes, some Brahminical grihasthas are willing to take sannyas. And Prabhupada was really bang, just like that.
But that was in the early days of the movement, just to spread, get it going, Now we can...
Yeah, well, we really need to get it going now. We really slowed down since then. Yeah.
But what about the second half of the movement?
Second half?
Well, sometimes that point is raised.
We'll take care of them. We'll take care of them.
The second half of the movement, in other words, we should be focusing on the Varnashram Dharma, the second half, and we may not have completed the first half, but we should focus on the second half.
Varnashram means coming to sannyas. At least some people come to sannyas. I told you some people, devotees don't like to hear the truth.
Well, can we at least focus on vanaprastha before we...
Yeah, definitely. Real vanaprastha. Actually, I was just communicating recently with one of our older grihastha couples who live here, who are really sort of vanaprasthas, and the wife was asking me, is it right if I wear white? And I said, yeah, sure, it's okay if you wear white. Simplified lifestyle, that's what sort of it's about. Do something other than just calling it vanaprastha. We have a whole vanaprastha movement here. Radha Raja's moving it forward, and it's very
here
good.
in Hungary or at New Vraja Dham?
In Hungary, yeah, we've got a vanaprastha brochure of sort of standards, and they have sort of meetings of those who really want to start getting into it, and there's a group of devotees who are sort of meeting and discussing, because now they're getting to that stage. Some of them are children are growing up, or they never had children.
Sounds very interesting.
Yeah, very progressive. I actually have it in English if you want. It's very simple. It's Prabhupada's instructions on vanaprastha.
You have a brochure in English?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I don't know if Radha Raja's hearing me. You can just give Maharaj that brochure.
I'll bring it to the UK and Australia and New Zealand and scare everyone. Where have you been, Maharaj? Get out of here! Spent too much time in Hungary. Come back with these radical ideas.
All fanatics and
Hare Krishna.
right?
I think
You're reading.
I forgot. I think we're 48.
Really? Oh. Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Correct. It's you.
Love for Lord Krishna is very pure, just like the waters of the Ganges. That love is an ocean of nectar. That pure attachment to Krishna does not conceal any spot, which would appear just like a spot of ink on a white cloth. Purport. Unalloyed love of Krishna is just like a big sheet of white cloth. Absence of attachment is compared to a black spot on that white cloth. Just as the black spot is prominent, so the absence of love of Godhead is prominent on the platform of pure love of Godhead.
In other words, there's no lack of attachment anywhere.
Pure attachment. I'm looking at the Bengali for the Nirmala Anurag. Nirmala say Anurage, pure attraction. Unalloyed love of Krishna is like an ocean of happiness. If someone gets one drop of it, the whole world can drown in that drop. It is not befitting to express such love of Godhead. Yet a madman must speak. But even though he speaks, no one believes him.
Well, I thought there was no happiness. Now, it's an ocean of happiness.
Sukha Sindhu.
Sukha Sindhu.
Well, I can only think that the Sukha Sindhu, the ocean of happiness, is non-material happiness, so therefore in pure love of Krishna, that ocean of happiness contains waves that seem to be ocean of suffering and unhappiness.
Yes.
It's a different way, I would suppose, of looking at the ocean of pure love of Krishna, unalloyed love of Krishna. You look at it this way and it's so much agony. Look at it that way and it's so delightful. So inconceivably delightful that it is not befitting to express, to talk about it. Yet a madman must speak.
Why must the madman speak?
But no one believes him. No one believes this. In this way, Lord Chaitanya used to revel in ecstasy day after day and exhibit these ecstasies before Sarupa and Ramananda Rai. Externally, there appeared severe tribulation, as if he were suffering from poisonous effects. But internally, he was experiencing bliss. This is characteristic of transcendental love of Krishna.
If someone gets one drop of it, the whole world can drown in that drop. Sorry, go ahead.
If one tastes such love of Godhead, he can compare it to hot sugarcane. When one chews hot sugarcane, his mouth burns, yet he cannot give it up. Similarly, if one has but a little love of Godhead, he can perceive its powerful effects. It can only be compared to poison and nectar mixed together. I always wondered about the poison and nectar mixed together.
The verses explain it.
Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spoke, "My dear, beautiful friend, if one develops love of Godhead, love of Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaja, all the bitter and sweet influences of this love will manifest in one's heart. Such love of Godhead acts in two ways. The poisonous effects of love of Godhead defeat the severe and fresh poison of the serpent. Yet there is simultaneously transcendental bliss, which pours down and defeats the pride of nectar and diminishes its value. In other words, love of Krishna is so powerful that it simultaneously defeats the poisonous effects of a snake, as well as the happiness derived from pouring nectar on one's head. It is perceived as doubly effective, simultaneously poisonous and nectarian. Purport. This verse is spoken by Purnamasi to Nandi Mukhi in the Vidagdha Madhava of Srila Rupa Goswami. Pidabir Nava Kala Kuta Katuta Garvasya Nirvasano Nisyandena Mudam Sudha Madurima Hankara Sankochanaha Prema Sundari Nanda Nandana Paro Jagarti Yasyantade Gyayante Sputam Asya Vakra Maduras Te Naiva Vikrantayaha. Spoken by Purnamasi to Nandi Mukhi.
Seems like someplace we could continue tomorrow. Actually going over that verse. It's this is so wonderful. This whole part of Caitanya Caritamrita is really extraordinary.
Before we go, can you tell us just a little bit about Nandi Mukhi? Is she the flower girl, or?
Nandi Mukhi is the niece of Purnamasi. She's a Brahmini, and she is the, or how's it go? Or she's the sister of Madhu Mangal.
Is she mentioned in Vilap Kusumanjali? Someone is mentioned as the...
She's in Vilap Kusumanjali. In Vilap Kusumanjali, maybe. I can't remember. She's certainly mentioned in Govinda Lila Amrita and Vidagdha Madhava. Mentioned in Vraja Dham. He's one of the prominent personalities. I think in the category of Saki. So she's got more love for Krishna than for Radharani. Hare Krishna, Ki. Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Shri Caitanya Caritamrita Ki Jai, Pt2 Madhya Maharaja Ki Jai, Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Hari 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 Bo.
Srila Sivarama Swami Maharaj Ki
Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Jai.